So today on our podcast, we're going to talk, continue our communications pillar, and what we're going to talk about today is really how you should train through the eyes of your dog instead of through the eyes of a human being or the emotional side of human being, and that comes from watching the dog and how the dog works, but also I think at the end of the day it's really your reactions and your training all should be based on the dog's reaction and not what you necessarily think. And that sounds a little bit against the grain of what we talk about from consistency and you creating the schedule and the routine for your dog and all of that. But how it's done is what's important. And so I was sitting last night in a lesson, and the owners are having a really big struggle about consequences, and also, how do we communicate to the dog that what she's doing is not okay, and that was a really intense lesson. We didn't do anything other than talk about really proper discipline of a dog, and where the dog is clear about what you're not wanting them to do versus how they feel like it should be. And I feel like this is probably one of the hardest things for a trainer to get through to people, because their emotion is so it's so humanized that they can't think through the eyes of the dog and how the dog is learning. So I'm going to throw a scenario out there and we'll talk about it. So puppy is tied up to the leg of the couch. She's incredibly oral, she's incredibly busy, she's incredibly jumpy, she's mouthy, busy. Cat can't sit still, so now you're not paying attention. I'm going to throw my bed all over the place, and I'm going to dig, and I'm going to shake this big bed all over the place, and then eventually somebody gives her some attention of some sort to think that she's needing some attention. And so, Michelle, what would be your first reaction to that dog as far as communicating to it through the eyes of the dog so the dog understands? So give me one behavior that you want to stop in that scenario, and then what consequences would happen, and how would you discipline for it?
There's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
I guess at first I probably would ask them what they're doing at that time. Are they just sitting? What's going on in the house? Is the house crazy? Because the house is crazy.
It's two older husband and wife. Kids are all grown up.
Okay. Honestly, I'd put her back in her crate. Mm-hmm. I would just take her right to her crate, and then when she was calm, I'd bring her back. That's what I would start. That's where I would start.
Uh-huh.
Mostly because that consequence is a little bit easier for people to wrap their head around. It's okay, you know what I mean? You're just taking them and putting them somewhere else to be calm. And if you can't be calm out here, then you have to go be calm in your crate.
Uh-huh.
And then I would probably shorten the leash so that she didn't have as much room to be crazy. Teach her that settling down is a good thing. That's probably where I'd start.
Okay. Melissa?
I kind of have the same, the crate. I would take the bed away.
Mm-hmm.
If she's using that privilege, she's going to get to bed.
Mm-hmm.
Shorten leash, and I'd do a restraint down in that corner. But I would definitely do it if she's fighting for attention right then. She wouldn't want the attention that she would be given. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
If they're going, okay, stop it, I'd come over there very direct.
Mm-hmm.
Stop. And then walk away and see how she settles then.
Mm-hmm.
And if she's not settle then, increase and put her in that crate.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't even look at her. I would just grab her, put her in that crate, and make it very direct of no, you're not. Because even attention, I'm assuming that even when they look at her, as they stop, she's like, whoop, got a reaction.
Mm-hmm.
So if they have a wonder about a squirt ball, how she reacts, she might like it, the vinegar or a shaker can, but seeing what would stop her and how she's reacting with the people.
Mm-hmm.
But taking away all the stimulus around her, like pillow and long leash and stuff like that.
Okay. Shannon?
I'm a fan of yell at the sofa to get them to stop chewing on stuff.
Mhm.
If they're tied, like you can't move the sofa, but you can move almost anything else.
Mhm.
But if they're chewing at the leg of the sofa or chewing on the rug or whatever, then you can go straight directly to the rug or the chair, whatever, and tell the chair it's bad to keep the dog away from destroying the furniture.
Mhm. So the dog reacts really positive to any negative reinforcement. It actually hypes her up. The crate really does nothing. She can be in there for 5 minutes, and she can be in there for an hour. She comes back out, and it's the same. Restraint down is, we're about 75% there in the restraint down. The only thing that shifted her last night is me grabbing hold of her collar and getting in her face and really growling at her. And that's really hard for people to do. And they try and mimic what I'm doing, and it comes across as if they're talking to a 3-year-old. The amount of aggressive energy that it takes to be another dog is incredibly difficult. So we are recording, Monica, so if you just want to grab, just go grab a dog and start working. Okay. It becomes hard to be a dog for people. So my grab a hold, that's enough, don't you do that, became, I don't like that, don't do that anymore. And so it becomes very difficult to ask clients to be a dog. But when we think about it from the terms of, well, dogs are pretty intense if you let dogs be dogs. It's very clear, it's very black and white. And dogs can manipulate human beings really, really well. Michelle, do you have some examples of how dogs can manipulate us?
Ever since Murphy's gotten sick, we've been letting him get away with a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
You guys would not believe how fast that dog has just been like, I don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we're talking, this has been what, like 3 weeks ago we found the lumps?
Right.
Ish.
Yeah.
And ever since then, we've definitely been baiting him and letting him get away with stuff, and like, oh my gosh. I mean, the kitchen was never like 100% ever, we all know that, but like, he just thinks he belongs in the kitchen now. Oh, the couch has become his couch.
Yeah.
And he's never done that. Like, he's always asked permission to get on the couch. It's just his couch now. He literally is like putting, and I think this actually came from a couple weeks ago. We also were dealing with him with some asthma issues and stuff like that. So he was on steroids, and so he was hungry.
Yeah.
Oh, he'll, even now that he's on steroids, his head is like in your plate. And you're like, it is so funny to me how fast, and it really, really makes me think that like, there are some breeds out there, and Briards are one of them, that soft people should not have.
Yeah.
Because if we would have never ever set rules with that dog, he would be a nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it is 100%, you can just see, he knows what he's supposed to be doing,
Right.
and he's like, I really just want to be on the couch with you.
Yeah.
Like,
Because you've softened up
yep,
and then
yep,
you can.
it is,
Sure.
but it blows my mind how fast it's happened.
Yeah.
He chose not to go to the bathroom yesterday when the doorbell rang. I was like, no. That's one thing you have to do. Like,
Yeah.
nope. So it's funny because like that has not been inconsistent. It's like but he's even like backsliding on those things. He's
Right.
like, meh. He's 7. Like, he definitely he knows how to manipulate it for
Yeah.
100%.
Shannon, you sent us all a picture of Dutch in Louie's crate, and I, it really is her manipulating him to be successful at something that she obviously has been thinking about for a while. It's not like he said, hey, climb in my crate. she was manipulating things to make that happen because she really needed, in her mind, she needed to get in there. Talk to us a little bit more about that.
You can see her test stuff all the time with him. He's kind of grumpy and kind of not, that dog. And so things that he's grumpy about obviously are of higher value, right? And that is the highest value thing of all at our house, I think, his crate. And so now, so far, we've had both dogs now, I've tested him to the point of him letting them be in there, you know?
Yeah.
But it's like a journey, because first it starts as, well, maybe I can run by here really fast. Maybe I can reach in and grab something out of there. Well, you know, and it progresses into how much can I get away with before you do something about it until they get all the way in. But I think it's like interesting and funny to just watch them try to get away with stuff with him and see what he'll do. Because it's like this progression of testing to get what they want, which is easy to see when you can see both dogs, but it's harder to see when it's like you and the dog in the relationship. And I think that's why it's hard for people to see because they're in on the other end of it and not looking in from the outside, you know?
Melissa, so, and it just really leads into the question that I have for you is, talk about that whole situation as to now the humans on the other side of the manipulative piece. And how would you change the manipulation?
For which, any scenario? Well, I actually had a conversation with a client this morning. She called me frustrated because her dog, border collie mix, cowers anytime he's in trouble, and then she feels bad and gets out of it. And she called me all frustrated because he's doing that more and more and more. And I was like, well, of course he is. He's got your number. You are, because the example is she had a friend over and he loves her, but he wouldn't go outside to go to the bathroom. Cowered, whined, and she thought he felt bad, so she brought him inside, he peed, and then went and played with her. I think it was very much, I don't want to be up here, this is my agenda. And so now like her job is anytime he cowers, go away from him. Put him away, do exactly what you were wanting him to do, make him work through that, and go, oh. And the more he cowers, just be stern with him, just stay there, and don't give up, because that's her thing, is she'll stop. Oh, it's not working. He feels bad, I'm making him hate me. No.
No, he's actually asking for
and he's
more
gonna,
clear.
exactly, he doesn't know, so he's like, and he knows that if he knows that if he doesn't eat breakfast, she's been giving him bones. So, I mean,
there's no reason to eat breakfast.
Yes, there's no reason, because he knows that if he doesn't eat them, he's got a bone. So our talk this morning was, your dog's manipulating you. So she has to write down everything today, what he does and what she does, as much detail. Because she needs to change, because he's perfectly happy with what's going on.
For sure. As we change, I have to stop something just a minute. Stop it. Nick? Lie down. Down. Sorry about that. My herding dog was biting the heels down of my German Shepherd, and he needs to get out and work. Down. Talk about manipulation, right? I'm not sure quite what I just reinforced there as we're talking about this. Down. Thank you. So, getting back on track to the manipulation of it, when you're training through that, it really is important to see it through the eyes of the dog. And maybe that manipulation is telling you something. Maybe it's a change of how you're going to train. Maybe it's change of a style that you're going to train with, or maybe it's a different tool that you need to train with to help them through it. And I look at manipulation a little bit more of the dogs are asking a question, and And you need to answer that question clearly, not kinda sorta.
No, I definitely agree, and like with this dog, it's always when she's wanting him not to do something,
Mm-hmm.
and like he doesn't know what you're asking him to do,
Yep,
so he's going, okay, I need to get out of this situation,
right,
because you're not helping me.
Yep.
So,
yeah. I think that I mean, if you're listening to this podcast and wanna see the video that's happening here, you can see some of the manipulation that's happening with the border collie that's sitting in front of us. And it took him a minute to finally surrender to the down, and I'm not completely convinced that he has. And sometimes we have to ignore the manipulation, for them to be clear about what we really asked them to do. But he's asking a lot of questions in this circle right here as far as trying to get eye contact, trying to get information because he loves to snuggle and he wants the attention. And so there's so much that's happening through training and how the dogs are communicating to you that sometimes it is good, Shannon, to stop and watch what happens. Michelle, sometimes it's good to go, wow, I just completely got screwed here with my dog. You know, like, yeah, no, we're still gonna do this.
Oh, I wonder for the past week, with him getting worse, with Murphy getting worse and worse, like, with this kind of stuff, I'm like, I really, really wonder what's going on in his head. Like, if he's like, holy crap, something is really wrong.
Yeah,
Like, you guys are being weird. Because we are babying the crap out of him, and it's
Sure.
like, and I just wonder how much of it he is like, wait a minute, something's actually wrong.
yeah. I mean, it's emotionally, it's hard on both sides of things,
Yeah.
because when they're struggling through things, you know, I mean, Mick got his toe broke and we've still been working through, and I think we wrapped it for like 24 hours. And you're still like, oh, are you okay? And I can't baby you, because especially him, where he will continue to manipulate in a weird way. And he's in a really funky spot in his life with everything. So I've had to really just not focus on the help part of him. He's not going to die,
Right.
so we're just going to work on through,
Yeah.
because he'll completely take over. So it's important to, one, stop and watch, to have an answer for your dog and be clear about what they're asking you, and will perceive the licking of a hand. You know, what are they asking you really? What are they testing? Can I lick? Can I put my teeth on you? So everything that they do is really should be looked at as a question, and they're looking for an answer, and we have the choice on how we're going to answer that question. So as you're going about your day with your dog, stop and see what questions they're asking, and stop and think about the information that they're giving you that they need from you. So don't be afraid to stop for a minute and look at things through the eyes of your dog. And my challenge to all of you is to think like a dog and be a dog for a day, and really think about how the information should come across through the eyes of a dog.